to see you. Hi, Vivek.
Hello, so good to see you, Jack, and to see everyone there.
Yeah. So I'm glad this is one of the first
Wildfire, please
sessions
come
we
back
get
to
to
the
start
stage.
with the doctor. I can hear that old rock and roll song, Doctor, Doctor. You know, we we need it. And I really like this guy, Vivek. I've gotten to know you, and there are, of course, all these accomplishments and things like that. But underneath it, um, you have been a real public servant, and it's like service the way the Bhagavad Gita talks about it as a path to the divine or the sacred. You're a public servant with heart for 8 years, um, and here we are in a time of tremendous cultural anxiety and disruption, and you ended your 8 years with this physician's prescription for America, the prescription for our ills that highlighted what we just heard, including the fact that you said half the people who go into the clinics and doctors' offices and medical hospitals are really suffering from not so much physical ailment, but from the sufferings of the mind and the heart. And that's true in our culture. Um, and so you've been a truth teller. Um, in a gracious way, Doctor, we need some good medicine. Tell us what's your prescription?
Well, Jack, first of all, it's incredibly kind of you, and it has been such an honor for me to not only get to know you as a friend, but long before that, to have considered you such an important teacher for me. And for all those who are listening, Jack and I were together recently, and I told him that I actually first encountered his work at a retreat almost 25 years ago when I was in medical school. And I just have been following, Jack, your work ever since then. So thank you for everything you've done for me and for millions of people out there. For me, Jack, this prescription that I issued in January as my last publication as Surgeon General, this is really rooted in what I was encountering in people I met all across America, which was this sense of unhappiness that was sometimes very apparent, sometimes it was hidden, but it was often there. And I found that many of the reasons and explanations for that unhappiness that I was reading about in the papers, whether it's economic uncertainty, concern about security, or other such issues, those are really important. But it seemed like there was something else that was also going on underneath the surface. And that's what this prescription was all about. It was a reflection on a multi-year journey for me to understand what was, in fact, driving that unhappiness. And what I came to conclude was that there were three critical elements that we need for deep fulfillment in our lives that have been eroding over time. And those are relationships with each other, a sense of purpose, and a sense of service and engagement in service. And relationships, service, and purpose are vitally important for our mental health, but it turns out also for our physical health. That when we are engaged in all three, and in each of them individually, it actually has positive effects on cardiovascular health, on our overall mental and executive function, as well as on our sense of well-being. But what we're seeing is that over time, these have in fact diminished. So now we have about half of young people and about a third of adults who are saying they're struggling with loneliness, for example. We have over 50% of young people say that they have little or no sense of meaning or purpose in their lives, which is really stunning. And you also look at it and you see that less than half of people in America are engaged in both formal and informal acts of service in their life. We are just less involved with helping each other. And this, I think of these three elements as the triad of fulfillment. And they're really vital. They're the heart of what our lives and society should be built around. But that triad, Jack, has been replaced by a different triad, one that I heard about time and time again from young people whenever I would ask them, how do you define success? And what they would always tell me is that it was fame, money, and power, that those are the three elements that constituted success. And if they could get all three of them, then hey, people would write books about them and make documentaries about them. They would have really made it. Yet what we have seen is that that triad of success, which increasingly is driving society and amplified on social media and in the traditional media, that there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself, but it does not necessarily lead to the kind of fulfillment that we all as human beings desperately seek. And I think that the erosion of the triad of fulfillment has led to this deeper unhappiness and is also manifesting as conflict, as political polarization. And this is why I think to address the challenges that we're seeing today in the world, we're not going to solve that with one single policy or program. We have to get to the deeper root causes and understand that rebuilding that foundation of relationships, purpose, and service is now one of our most important tasks.